Okay, everyone. So at the last video, we identified the full breakdown. Now, what we should be having is the start of our detailing sections. All right. So the first process we need to do is to start from our base, which would be our pot. Right. So what we do next is to define the contour of that pot. We're still using geometrics in some sense, but we're defining our finer shapes now. So our first move will be to define the shape of the pot, which will be our trapezium. All right. So once I've visually identified the shape I'm using, I'm going to be now transferring that shape to my drawing. Now, please be reminded that my drawing is on the right. The subject that I'm drawing is on the left. So I'm going to be identifying what movements or what shapes I would need to break that drawing or that object into before I do the applications to my drawing. All right. So I'm visually trying to identify the sections on the object on the left and then doing the designs on the right. Okay. So this is the process that we're going through. Now, as I've identified my part, the next area I'm going to do is look at how my plant is growing. How does it develop? All right. So the next step would be to identify the direction of the central stem, the stem that is the focal point of the drawing. Now you'll realize it's not vertical, it's leaned a bit. So I'm going to be using a diagonal line. So what I will be doing is doubling this line to make a parallelogram. So the shape I'm using on the right is a parallelogram. So the lines are parallel. Okay, now you'll notice that it does not go all the way to the top because there are leaves to the top of that stem. Okay, now the next line I'll be identifying is the one to the left, the stem to the left. And I'll be doing the same thing using a parallelogram to identify that line. Okay, now they're not touching all the way to the triangle, all the trapeziums, so you'll know they're not going all the way to the top. All right, my next stem starting to the right, it's the stem, the tallest stem that's behind the smaller one in the pot. So you realize that there are two there. So first I'm doing the longest one and then I'll do the shorter one. Okay, so we have two parallelograms identified. All right, so it's 1, 2. Okay, now after doing this section, I'm going to be cleaning up, meaning removing the shapes that I have as my guidelines. Now remember that when you are drawing these, you should use your drawing grip. So you should hold the pencil as far from the point as you're able to. And this would give you the cleanup version of your drawing, right? So we've broken down into geometric shapes and we've kind of broken down into some contours, all right? Now we're going to be going in further detail in each. So once we have identified our shapes, we're not going to do everything all at once again. We're now going to detail each contour, each broken down section, all right? So the first section we're going to be starting with will be our focal point, our stem. So we're going to be starting with that section. Now, when we look at the stem, we realize that it does have a curved element to it. So it is a curved contour line. Now, our shape has defined its width and its height. Okay, so what we're going to be doing in the shape on the right is we're going to make sure our contour fits inside of that shape, all of the shape. So we identify that. Okay, now you will notice that once I do that, I'm going to be erasing the shape that's around it. So I'm only left with my contour line. So it's very important, everyone, that we keep drawing these lines very lightly so that they'll be easily erased. Okay. Now, as we go forward to that, the next section will be the details on the stem, which will be those spikes. So if you see, I'm identifying how much spikes do I need to draw. So you don't have to draw all of them, but enough to move the eye from one location to the next. So as I've identified them on the left, I'm going to be putting them in on the right. and this will do the same process for each side. Now you will notice I'm doing a side at a time, not doing everything at once, a side at a time. So once I do that, in my image on the left, I'm going to be putting it into my drawing. Now, this process is used because you have to look before you draw. So observe the item and then transfer the details to the other side. Okay? Now, we've had this primary detail in, so we're going to be going now to our next section to put in that information. All right? Now, the other area that we're focusing on will identify our plants. These are going to go to the top of that stem. Okay? Now, we have to study these details correctly so we can put them in the correct sections. All right? Now, for each detail, we're going to be identifying its main component. All right? And when I'm drawing leaves, the first thing I try to identify is the stem. All right? That center part of the leaf. So as I do that, I'm going to be now drawing, ensuring that my center line is identified. Then I'm going to be going to one side, always start at the left first. It's just my preference, you don't have to. But I usually start from the left. Then I will go and correct that drawing. Then I move to the right. Now each element, I do one left, then a right. And I'm continuing the sections of that drawing. So you have to just take your time and draw along and just follow those procedures correctly. Okay? Now, as I complete one element, then I move to the next. And I'm trying to ensure that what I am seeing is what I'm trying to copy. All right? So I'll do the left, and then I'll do the right. Now you'll notice that with this leaf, there's another leaf behind it. So I am identifying the shape of one before I do the shape of the other. Now I also pay attention to where the leaf starts and ends. So you realize that it's connecting to this leaf, that when I'm drawing it, I'm doing the same thing, ensure that it connects to the leaf. All right? So I have just viewed 3 leaves and I've just drawn 3 leaves. And this is the process that we must continue until we complete the leaves that are identified. Please pay attention to how the line moves. So we are paying attention to that contour. And we look to see where each line would start from the other. Now the last leaf that we're putting in, it's curved, but every leaf has a center vein. And once we identify that, it will help us to draw any leaf, any type. Identifying the center vein and looking at the shape or the contour that's on either side.